So for every dimension of glory that the believer's life should capture and express, there is a spiritual pattern. Another word for a mystery, another word for a pathway. There is a spiritual pattern that leads to definite outcomes that we call glory. Are we together now? Every possibility in the kingdom, listen carefully, every possibility in the kingdom is a product of understanding and working in keeping with certain spiritual patterns. God does not leave the manifestation of the glory of God to guessing. There are exact spiritual patterns that produce exact outcomes. Now, when the believer is laced with all kinds and all levels of ignorance, you will find out that number one, your life will be bankrupt of glory, or number two, your life will produce dimensions of glory that are not predictable. So you may stumble across certain results, perhaps results that come from prophetic decrees. So a decree is made over your life, and that week becomes a week of favor, and then it ceases because the real pattern that controls that outcome has not been grasped. This is the product of, this is the call for mastery. Mastery brings you in a position where you no longer fear your results because you have studied the pattern that leads to that outcome. Are we together now? God is a God of pattern. When you go to meet a tailor, look up please, you meet a tailor, one who perhaps is responsible for your clothes. You show that tailor something that you want, no matter how complicated the design is. Sometimes you are even afraid whether the man can do it, and he laughs. He says, I understand. He knows how to produce that result. Why? Because as complicated as that outcome is, there is a pattern. If you are not a tailor, it will remain a mystery. The assignment of the training school is to demystify that mystery. Are we together now? When you go and meet a medical doctor, especially a consultant, while you are describing your cases using all kinds of limited expressions, all he's looking for are patterns, because there are patterns that can reveal to him that this is this. Sometimes the patterns may require to take specimens and then to test further, but the whole idea is that through the power of patterns, many lives have been preserved, medically speaking. There is a pattern that leads to influence. There is a pattern that leads to walking in the supernatural. There is a pattern, listen carefully, that makes you an exceptional leader. There is a pattern that leads to wealth and abundance, a pattern for speed, a pattern for deliverance. Your assignment as a believer is to remain ever open to bring together by the ministry of a teaching priest and in partnership with the Spirit. Every service is supposed to be an exposition of spiritual patterns, so that if and when you have been around a house of God for a while, where the word of God is taught with accuracy, there you may not know everything, but at least we should see commendable results in your life by engaging patterns. Are we together? Now watch this. I'm holding a mic here, and there is a system to put this mic on. When I push this down, then it comes back. I switched it off. Now the mic does not care who manipulates it. The moment you engage the pattern that offs the power, it offs. Am I right on that? It does not ask you whether you are an American. It does not ask you whether you are Russian, whether you are European, whether you are Nigerian. If the mic is off, it is not because of any tribal sentiment. So you can hold this mic with such profound potential to amplify your voice, and yet you may not be heard. And you see, it is dangerous to not produce results for a long time. I have taught you, because the absence of your result produces another kind of theology. When someone has to learn God through the lens of your life, what part of God will be misrepresented? If someone has to use your life as the only template to learn God, If your life were the only Bible to be read, are we going to read John in your life? Are we going to read Proverbs in your life? For some of you, the only part in your life may be Ecclesiastes. You will rob us of knowing that there are other chapters. My assignment is to stretch you and to show you, listen, that you do not have to be afraid of results. Results are exact products of patterns. Are we together? Yes. Moses in Exodus chapter 33, Exodus chapter 33, we'll read verse 13, then we'll go to verse 18. Moses was crying unto God. Verse 18 was a cry to experience the glory of God. But most people do not know that the request started from verse 13. Now therefore I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, it says, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. Do you know what he was saying? In other words, I need to lead these people properly, but the problem is my convictions and my personal results, and I know that the glory of God upon me would affect their loyalty. So show me your way. Now verse 18, 33 and verse 18. And he said, I beseech thee, show me your glory. You will never experience the glory of God in any aspect of your life until you study carefully the spiritual pattern connected to that. Please, I want you to follow carefully and believe what I'm telling you. Your life will remain an unending wonder once you master the patterns of the Spirit. So when the devil wants to rob you of the glory of God, he does not fight the glory. He fights your access to the patterns of the Spirit.